Hey, Kaiju. How's it going? How's your day? Just finishing priming up the last of my Dothraki horsemen and then maybe try and do some of the she-bears or the Bolton Blackguards. I have both here at the table. That's good. Chill days are always fun. Fun fact, you can tell this is Khal Drogo, played by oh shoot, what's his name? Aquaman. I forgot his name. Hi Terry. Yes, hi Terry. Jason Momoa. I don't know why I forgot that name. You can tell it's Khal Drogo because he's got two heads in hand and then he's got this super long hair braid. Gotta get up in the armpit here. Yeah, Terry? Yeah. I kind of enjoy the difference between aesthetics in the book and aesthetics in the show. Um, they're just very different. I feel like the show does better with the character design because more often they're just not tan white people. But I think one of the biggest differences is like this is supposed to be the Dothraki sword according to the book, but in the show they use something that's more like a khopesh or a scythe, whereas this is more like a funky scimitar. Okay, get up in here. Yeah. It's at least based on the Khopesh, but yeah, it's that whole straight and then a big giant curved scythe, and they just kind of like swing it around while they're riding their horses. But like, so like, this is Khal Drogo with the Arak, but then you get the regular horsemen, and they just have a straight up scimitar. Yeah. Although the weird part was that in the show they used the outside curve a lot. I guess so they could swing it like a wiffle bat. Um, they didn't really use the inside curve. I guess that was just like easier for everyone to actually use them in the show, but like yeah, like for something based on a scythe, you'd figure they'd use the inside curve more. All right, gotta get up in here. Uh, One thing I'm enjoying is the all the new costume designs for House of the Dragon. Like everything is visually distinct from the show. The gold cloaks are completely different. The King's Guard are different. Uh, One thing I'm enjoying is like all the aesthetics are giving the House of Valerion because they weren't a house you saw in Game of Thrones, but like they're putting a lot of visual differences to show like yeah, these guys may have been cousins to the Targaryens, but they're just different. And it's like very different in a good way. There's so many heads. I feel like I'm painting a Games Workshop miniature. And let me just get some more Sandry's dust. Yeah, like the costume design for Game of Thrones has always been great in my opinion, but it seems like now that the I can't think of their names because everyone just calls them D&D brothers because their initials are D and D. But you know without the main influence of the two main writers for Game of Thrones, it seems like everything's coming out a heck of a lot more um, different, fleshed out. But also, like, you know, there's supposed to be like 150 years difference between House of the Dragon and Game of the Thrones, and I think it's really highlighting that. It just comes out making Game of Thrones look really weak. Because, like, you know, in Game of Thrones, the Gold Cloaks, for example, wore lots of chainmail. So, you know, everything kind of looked like they're covered in veils almost. Because everything was, like, you know, it's supposed to be gold. Their armor was gold. Their helmets were gold. Their shows were gold. Uh, you know, meanwhile, then you're seeing House of the Dragon where the Gold Cloaks are first made. And it's like, no, these are guys in pretty big, heavy, dark armor that just happen to have yellow capes. I'm really enjoying House of the Dragon. It's a lot more political drama than Game of Thrones was. Um, there is just like a whole bunch of new costuming and everything, and it's just really great. The writing is coming across better, uh, which doesn't necessarily do good for the characters because the characters are all douche nuggets. But you know, it like if you enjoy the BattleTech novels, I think you'll enjoy House of the Dragon, even if you didn't enjoy Game of Thrones. Yeah, I ran out of the skeleton bone primer spray was using, so I'm having to paint these by hand with Xandri dust. It's honestly not the worst loss because every time I used the skeleton bone, it was seemed like it's a 50-50 toss if I was going to have to strip it and try again because the paint just went on super thick. So I guess I don't have to fight with that anymore. But the Xandri dust is a heck of a lot darker than the skeleton bone, even though the internet lied to me and said they were comparable shades. Darn internet. How dare you lie to me? Honor the dragon. Yeah. That was too thick. Yeah, the internet lied. Who would have figured that, a mass of information relied on goodwill would be dishonest or mistaken? But on the one hand, this kind of works out because, the Dothraki are not white people. So this works out because it gives me room to build up instead of down. Oh, nice. They made whole banners? I mean, I know they did the shirts and patches because I got like, okay, yes, I bought some of them off eBay, like the Smoked Jaguars, Clan Wolf, and Wolf Dragoon. Um, would have bought Glass Scorpions, but I don't have $150. um, I don't have any money right now. Yeah, the Dothraki are totally white the same way Jesus was white. Although, like, the funny part is Jesus was culturally white. No, I'm not getting into that. I'm tired of being. I was a preacher's kid. I'm tired of these arguments. Yeah, no, Jesus was not a white person. Just when the Jews asked him if it was okay that they're slaves to the Greeks, he said yes. So, not white, but he's an asshole. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a little bit funny because, like, as far as I know, George R. R. Martin wasn't responsible for a lot of the art. He just, like, wrote the societies and everything. But then the art did a lot of, yes, everyone is somehow white. And, then you get into the shows, and the shows are like, no, this doesn't make sense. Why is, Prince Doran's bodyguard from across the narrow sea a white guy with a Viking beard? So then the show, Arya Hota is instead, a big bald black man with a giant glaive. It's like, yeah, this actually makes more sense. Uh, but I'm just really enjoying a lot of what they're doing with House Valerion because, uh, Valerion, Targaryen, and Celtigar were supposed to be the three families that escaped old Valyria and, came to Westeros and then, established, the king of the seven realms and whatnot. They're that big conquest everyone's talking about with Aegon and his dragons. And but the thing is, the Targaryens were the only ones who had dragons. So now they're kind of like, yeah, Valerion, Targaryen, and Jeff. And now they're fleshing out the families to show that, like, oh, there's a reason for that. The families that survived old Valyria are, not just clones of each other. They're very distinct. They had their own cultures, much like, the various regions of the Seven Kingdoms have their own cultures. And I just really like how it's working out because, the Targaryens are this big fire dragon house, and then the Valerians are a seahorse. Valerian, Targaryen, and Jeff just reminds me how for Godzilla King of the Monsters, how they just named Ghidorah's heads, 1, 2, and Kevin. It's because Kevin was supposed to be the dork head. Alright, and I'm not going to do, well, at least the plan isn't to do any actual painting on the Dothraki tonight, unless for some reason this just takes very long. But we'll hopefully move on to the she-bears. Yeah, Ichi, Ni, and Kevin. Kevin was the playful, derpy one that Ichi had to pull out when he was regrowing. I actually love that part in the movie, and then when I found out about the names, I'm like, oh, that explains a lot. All right, so we'll just paint up the base a bit to cover up this red. Just to satisfy my compulsions. There we go. Oh, there's some more red there on the side of the head. I forget who, but there's someone in the books who rides a black horse that has bright red hair. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have a favorite of the MonsterVerse films. I enjoyed Skull Island, Godzilla, and Godzilla King of the Monsters. Godzilla versus Kong wasn't bad, but like I don't feel a great need to rewatch it. Like there were just a lot of things about it that seemed like they really rushed it in contrast to the others. Like I didn't even realize the one guy who's piloting Mecha Godzilla was the Japanese professor's son. I didn't realize that until someone brought it up. I'm like, wait, what? Now, what's funny is this one I stripped the paint, but you can see where I added the green stuff. Kong, King of Monsters. Yeah, Godzilla 2014 kind of reminded me of, how they do movies like Cloverfield, how everything's supposed to be ground level with the person instead of like, a monster action movie. Although I did have to laugh at Kick-Ass being a Marine. I like how. Okay, so I think you can see it here. I like how on the Dothraki models they help simulate the horse's movement by adding these little grass bits. I don't know what color I'm going to paint the grass, but I'm going to try and look up like savanna grass type, sub-Sahara. I'm from Florida. The grass is either green or it's like yellow weeds that grow along the beach. Of course, the green grass is usually dying in Florida because everyone wants to transplant stuff that's not made for Florida. Which then means it has to have constant care and blah blah blah. And boy, I hated being a preacher's kid who had to do all the yard work for free. Yeah, kind of like yellow with green with a dry brush green for the highlights is what I was figuring. Yeah. I mean, really, the fact that there's like astroturf and other turf that doesn't grow into long grass, I think is like what should be the standard. Florida's a swampland. It's not supposed to have long grass. You know what happens when you get long grass in Florida? You get cottonmouths. You get snakes that are more than happy to chase you down and chew your face off. It's not fun. I speak from experience. The day I saw a king snake in the yard was the happiest day of my life because I knew it would have food. Heck, I remember we used to have palm trees in the yard, and one day we're cutting down the palm trees. You know what falls out of one of those palm trees? A bloody pit viper. This big giant ball of orange angry just falls out of a bloody palm tree. It's like, what the hell? Everyone's going, oh, Australia's the death plan because they have drop bears. You know what? I'll take a drop bear over a snake that can kill me any day of the week. Of course, now I live in Louisiana and the people are worse than the snakes. Boy, this was supposed to be a chill stream, and instead I'm just hyperventilating. Alright. There we go. Yeah, think about bears. Think about these big, giant warrior women. Like, there's a whole box of them. I have a total of 15 of them to paint. Oh, no, I have 14 left to paint. I have a total of 15 miniatures. kind of feel like for the horses, just maybe do a basic contrast with like Gulman Flesh and Seagore Brown. Maybe Apothecary White just to see how that reacts with this. And that way I get like, you know, your basic tones of kind of light, dark, and medium. Uh, I, I don't want to think about how many mechs I have to paint. You see the picture on the Discord. I have a lot. Yes, I too would like to turn into a giant woman. It would fulfill a lot of my dreams to finally be taller than 5'6". Finally, I can be the height that matches how much of a punch I can take. I can finally reach the pedals in the car without having to scoot all the way forward. God, I hated that about my Firebird. So I'm like 5'6", but it's all torso. So I kind of have really short legs. So, you know, when I was driving a Firebird, I'm sitting there having to hunch over just to get in and out of the car and then scoot the seat all the way forward so I can reach the pedals. It was a godly uncomfortable car. And for some reason, my dad thought it would be a blessing to go, hey, here's your car. You now owe me 3 times the value on it. Like, no wonder I have back problems. I spent so much of my life either getting hurt and then crawling in and out of this tiny little coffin. Like, it is widely more comfortable to have a car I don't have to bend to get in and out of. Alrighty. There we go. On the other hand, while I'm still only doing 1 layer, I am actually finally doing the whole thinning the paint down. Yeah, no problem. Feel free to lurk. That is a lot of cop sirens out there. I'm guessing there was an accident somewhere outside because there's a lot of cop sirens. Let's see. Let's go ahead and like, honestly, living less than a mile from the closest police station, I'm kind of surprised I don't hear the sirens more often. It also seems like the only thing they respond to are really bad accidents. Like, One time we had a truck crash into a power pole. No cops showed up for that. Another time we had someone who got very drunk outside, and other people were worried they were maybe going to hurt themselves because they were on the third floor and not very sober. Cops didn't show up until like an hour after everyone was freaking out, and by then it was all said, done, over, and they were back inside sleeping. The cops in Baton Rouge do not care. Sorry, normally I try to like focus on just happy stuff, not life stuff, but my filter's kind of broken for the day. This is me trying to help reset. Gotta get up in here. No wonder animals don't like this when a vet does it. I feel bad doing it to a model. Here we go. There we go. As funny was this model right here above the elbow, that's a separate part. The arm splits in two parts. So, like earlier today, this lower arm was just like way down here in the wind. It's probably a great effect for, still holding on after losing a hand, but I decided to fix that. It's not supposed to be in two pieces like that. Sorry, I decided to randomly clean my brush a little. Alright. Let's go ahead and get some more paints. I see some red that I need to go back over. Alright. Let's go ahead and get the excess on here. See, little cracks like this is what I mean by I think either the glue is bad and I just didn't notice 2 years ago, or it's since shifted. Because some it's like, oh, the neck joint's here. Others it's like, you can clearly see under the belly where his two side pieces glued together and they've cut, one's gone up, the other's gone down, etc. It's a little bit on the irks me side. There we go. Oh, my back. Probably should not be sitting since my back still hurts, but oh well. Alright. That should be enough paint to finish. Add some water to thin it down. I think that may have been too much water. Oh, yeah. Too much water, it's making bubbles. There we go. Let's go ahead and paint off the excess here on the base, cover up some of this red. Cover up some spots here. All right, here we go. Only all my painting went that fast. What are you? Well, I don't know what you are, but you're off now. I mean, to be fair, like they're just barely bigger than the mechs. Although, the king crab is one of the bigger ones, but, it's funny because the scale size is, oh, hey, you go to the people and they're just like, they're so much smaller. But that's also what makes the she bears great because they're almost the same size. This is the most I've sat since I hurt my back. It's not doing too well. Oh, the Stinger. Yeah, that is a very tiny model. It's not just short, it's skinny, and all the blocks are pressed together. Oh, ow, ow. Oh, ow. That pop did not feel good. I'll be okay. Just gotta finish this one. And I want to at least do one she-bear. But, I don't know. I got bills to pay, and I gotta work for that money. Because Lord knows I don't seem to be getting a job around here anytime soon. Yeah. Nobody wants to work. Maybe you should try hiring some people. I don't know. Just a thought. Like the job I used to work now, there's barely anyone working there because, oh, hey, they cut all the hours. Gee, I told you that was going to happen last year. Everyone went, oh no, you're just over exaggerating. It's not like you're 30 years old with 15 years experience of watching this shit happen. Happy thoughts, happy thoughts. Paint the stress away. Yeah, everyone treats you like if you haven't been a manager, then you're obviously an idiot, and they never consider the reason you're not a manager is because you aren't an idiot. Yes, they are. Um, I know it'll be forever before I can afford it, but they're coming out with an army for House Dorne. I was never expecting them to do that because, 2 years ago they just barely released House Targaryen and there was almost no support for it. But yes, I want the happy nation of happy bisexuals, please. So, uh, if someone wants to buy me the House Dorn army for my birthday, I would be a very happy non-binary something sexual thing. What was Dorn's thing? Pedro Pascal. They had Pedro Pascal and Siddig Fadil. They're kind of like a Mediterranean sort of nation, but they're at the very southern edge of Westeros, which is like kind of like, Florida, North Africa area where they're close to the equator. And like out of all the nations, they're just very progressive. They have no problem with women being rulers. They have no problem with women being soldiers. They're just very openly bisexual. Uh, they realize that, most marriages, especially amongst the nobles, are going to be a political thing. So instead, they have this whole system that's, if the political marriage isn't necessarily happy, you can just be openly poly and instead have a paramour. Or just, have a paramour at all. You don't even have to get married. So, that was Prince Oberyn's thing where, he had Elia Sand as, or Ilaria Sand as his paramour, his officially court recognized not a noble lover, who he had 4 daughters with. Then he had 4 other daughters who all had their own mothers. Nobody gave them shit. And in fact, all 8 of them were called the Sand Snakes and were like this very special, almost kind of elite military unit because 4 of them could just kill you as soon as they look at you. Uh, it's just like very happily progressive nation in the entirety of the world. But then they're also a heavy mix of what's called firstmen, which is supposed to be like, the indigenous population of Westeros, which you mostly see in the northern houses because they're all that's left. And the Rhoynar, who were these river nomads who migrated from Essos, came over and just like were kicking so much ass that, House Martell is just like, hey, what if we married your warrior queen? So, House Martell becomes House Nymeros Martell because the warrior queen was named Nymeria, yeah, there's still feudalistic nobles, but compared to like literally the rest of the world, they don't treat their serfs like slaves, and they're not homophobic. So, and they let women rule. But yeah, Nymeria is the same warrior queen that Arya names her wolf after. And then, when the Targaryens were conquering the rest of Westeros, they couldn't conquer Dorne. They had to make a alliance with Dorne, a marriage alliance. Yes, Canopus, but fantasy. If there ever were happy cat people in the world of Game of Thrones, they'd probably be living in Dorne. All right. So, oh, let's see. Do I want to keep going or do I want to call it there? Oh. I think I'm going to call it there because I can't quite. I've already done one of the Mormont, so I have an idea of like a general color scheme, and that's here. But I don't know if I want to try changing it up since everyone else is an unnamed character, or if I want to try doing the same. Like, this one model took me about 2 hours to paint, and I did it with a lot of washing and contrast paint, so. But, hey, thank you everyone for joining me. Hopefully everything's feeling better and I can try to paint later on today or / tomorrow night. But, I guess until then, I will see y'all later. So, have a good night, stay safe, have happy thoughts, find healthy ways to decompress, and have a good time. Night.